Hey guys, it's Mike from Eldorado Guitars, and today I am going to give you a highly requested video, which is a tour of the amp room. Let's go ahead and get to it. Hey guys, okay, so we're going to start on the right-hand side of the room, and we're going to go from top to bottom. Then I'll go over to the other side, do top to bottom. Then I'll talk about the amp in the middle, and then I'll show you a couple of other things. Okay, so first of all, these two amps. So this is a 2021 Carstens Amplification Grace. This is the Billy Corgan signature amp made by him and Brian Carstens. Brian's amazing. I love everything he does. He's got an incredible ear. He's like a savant at amp making. He's totally amazing. And this amp caught me completely by surprise in 2021. You know, I ordered it because of Billy and I was interested, and Brian was really nice during the ordering process. But when I got it, it really blew me away. I don't know what else to say. It just does it all in such a way that it's not like any other amp in this room. It can do really clean cleans. It can do insanely high gain. The response knob on the back can make it sound really dark and compressed, or it can open it all the way up like an old Marshall. This is the OG, so there's no effects loop. There's no thump control or anything like that. I know Brian's made a couple of mods. I've thought about sending it in before to see if I could get some, you know, maybe I could get it updated, but I don't know. I just haven't done it. You know, shipping is really expensive, and frankly, I'm really happy with the amp the way that it is. So absolutely incredible amp. Kind of like, if you want to know what it sounds like, it's kind of like a blend of like a Trainwreck, a Laney, and a SLO. That's kind of what it sounds like. Really, really cool, and never becomes harsh. Very responsive to your guitars. Every guitar sounds different through this amp, which is not true of all the amps in this room. For example, this Uberschall is not very picky about guitars, right? It's got one big sound, right? But this amp is very, very sensitive to every guitar that you plug into it. A Strat is going to sound different than a Super Strat, that is going to sound different than a Les Paul, that is going to sound different than a hollow body. And also really important with this amp is because you're using your volume control so much to morph the amp, not just clean it up, but actually morph, the taper on your pots can make a very significant difference as well. A treble bleed can actually impact the way this amp, you know, responds. So really it's like every guitar, every pot, you know, every taper on the pot, I mean, everything that just it's such a responsive amp, and it all comes together in one package. So absolutely killer amp. I love it. Next amp. So this amp is a Peavey 6505. This is, if you don't know what this is, basically a 5150. It's the 5150 after Eddie Van Halen left Peavey. They just changed the number. And this amp is a special one because it's been modded by Brian Carstens of Carstens Amplification. I did not have Brian make the mods. I actually bought it modded, and this amp got destroyed in shipping. It got completely leveled. I've never had so much damage done to an amp. The tubes were all shattered. The choke had come off, like the actual metal had come off, and pieces of the choke were banging around on the inside. The output transformer was cracked. The faceplate had fallen off. I didn't realize that till a little bit later. It was just sticking on with tension. If you just went like this, it went plunk and fell off. So this amp got completely totaled. And we're still fighting with FedEx, me and the seller, who's being very cool about it, are still fighting with FedEx over it. It was insured for the full value, but you know, they're always like, oh yeah, here's $300, go away. So we're still kind of trying to fight them on that. But I went ahead and spent the money at my own expense, ordered the repair parts, got new tubes, took it to Top Gear, which is a local shop here, and got it put back in the correct condition with the mods, right? So they did a great job. It sounds awesome now. This thing is like a, I don't know how to describe it. The mod, so the mod was supposed to take the 5150 and do two things, right? Take that 5150 circuit and kind of do two things. One, it was supposed to have a lot more low mid power, more like grunt, you know what I mean? So not quite so thin, thicken it out, right? And the second was to make it even more aggressive. So this thing will just rip your face off. Like if you are looking for that sound, if you were like, I wish I had a 5150 that was just like thicker and more aggressive, this is the amp. There's a lot of amps in this room that move a lot of air, but this one, man, really sounds like a jet engine. It's just this huge sound. It's almost like a, the seller phrased it to me as like Somewhere between a 5150 and a Carstens Empire is kind of what it sounds like. The Empire is one of Brian's other amps. It's a more aggressive amp. So it sounds absolutely awesome. Totally killer amp. Okay, hey guys, so we're below the 6505. I've got here an Uberschall and a Diezel. So the Uberschall is a Rev Green Uber from the early 2000s. The serial number actually indicates that this was probably one of the first ones made, or a prototype of some kind. This amp also has a little bit of a story. I bought it from a guy and got a really good deal on it. The guy was like, hey, I'm selling this cheap because I think that this amp needs to be looked at. You'll probably have to send it to Bogner, yada, yada, yada. So I was like, okay, cool. Great price. So I bought it, it came, I checked it out. I was like, yeah, it sounds pretty good, but like it had a cracked head shell. Not from shipping, like it was known before I bought it. It had a cracked head shell, and some of the controls were a little wonky. The clean channel was like very quiet, and the light didn't work. And then on the gain channel, it was like it didn't have a ton of gain. It's just kind of weird. There was something weird about it. So I sent it in to Reinhold, and he called me, which completely disarmed me, but he just like picked up the phone and called me. And he said, hey, I've got your Uber here on the bench. Like, did you know that this thing has been monkeyed with? And I was like, no, I mean, I knew there was something kind of wrong with it, but I have no idea. And he's like, yeah, somebody did a bunch of mods. They tried to make the presence control on the lead channel an actual presence control, which it's not if you've ever played one of these. The presence knob is basically a mid-sweep, is pretty much what it is. So if you ever played like a Wizard or something with that mid-sweep, I think he calls it contour or something, it's kind of like that. And so he was like, what do you want to do? You know, do you want me to leave it? Do you want? And I was like, no, please put it all back to stock. So he put the whole amp back to stock, fixed the light, fixed the clean channel, fixed the gain, like fixed everything, retubed the whole thing, and it just sounds absolutely killer. It's an insane amplifier, just brutal, really punishing, but not in like a modern metal way. Like I think you would have to, well, I don't know, you could get some modern metal tones out of it without boosting, but I think a lot of like real metal guys would probably want to boost it. But for me, as like a hard rock, like alt metal guy, this amp really sits in the zone, right? It's aggressive, it's thick, it's big, it's heavy, right? But it's like, it's not like that filtered kind of sound that a lot of modern metal players want. So this is an incredible, absolutely incredible amp. I got it re-head shelled. You probably noticed the awesome purple head shell while it was at Bogner. I was like, hey, let's do something like fucking crazy. You guys have purple Tolex? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So now it's got a kick-ass purple Tolex, which I really, really like. The only thing Reinhold didn't really do that I wish he had done was, I asked him if he could adjust the master volume to make the taper a little bit better. It's not really that great. I think it's just the nature of these amps, the nature of this circuit, but cool amp. Okay, next one, the Diezel. So this is the one that probably gets the most looks in the room because it's probably the rarest amp in this room, right? Yeah, it's the rarest amp in this room. It's also the most expensive amp in this room. And this is a very early 1996 Diezel VH4 S. So that stands for stereo. So instead of having one 100 watt power amp, this has two 50 watt power amps in the amp. So think of it as like literally it has 2 amps inside this amp, if that makes sense. So what that allows you to do is you can plug 2 cabinets in to the back, one in one power amp, one in the other power amp. You're not sacrificing like you would be on a Marshall when you plug both in. You've got to like lower the impedance and the sound is a bit different. You don't have to do that with this. It's like 2 full power 50 watt power amps. It's absolutely incredible when you play it in stereo. I'll be honest, I don't usually play it in stereo. I usually just take one of the power amps and just put it into a load box, and then I just use it as a regular amp. But when you run this thing in stereo, it's incredible. I mean, sometimes I'll plug into the Marshall cab and then the Mesa cab that's over there and then stand in the middle, and it's just like this insane like wall of sound. If you've never played your guitar through 2 stereo cabs, it's absolutely wild. Like I said, this was made in very early 1996. It was finished. It was being built in late 95, so it still has the old script, you'll notice. This is like the same as Adam Jones's, you know, has the old script instead of the new one with the thick white lines. Also only one bright switch, no bright switch on channel 2, and this has the full 8 preamp tubes in it as well. This is just, to me, this is like a dream amp. This is one of my favorite sounds of all time. I love the Diezel sound, and there definitely is a difference with these old ones. Don't believe anybody that tells you anything differently. I hate to say that, but don't believe them, because it's absolutely different. The old ones they're voiced differently. They're darker. They have a bit less gain. They are a little bit more vintage than the newer Diezels. Less modern, less crispy, more like grunt. And you've really got to turn this thing up to get it to sound like, you know? But when you do, it sounds insanely great. I do want to have this amp worked on a little bit. I'm going to do a video coming up where I'm going to record this amp before I take it in for service, and then I'm going to have it serviced, and then I'm going to do it again when I get it back. So what I'm going to ask them to do is retube the power section. Right now it has KT77s. That's how it came to me from Europe. I don't particularly care for KT77s. There's just something about them I don't like. They're a little stiff, and they have some grainy treble content that I don't really like, upper mid-range content that I don't really like. I'm going to put 6L6s in this bad boy. I really want to put 6550s because I heard they're awesome, but Peter Diezel said that it stresses the output transformer, and so because of the collectability of this amp, and I don't want to, and you would never be able to get another transformer, right? You get a replacement, but it's not going to be the same as these old ones from Europe in the mid-90s. So I think they're like Langer or something. I don't remember. So I'm not going to do 6550. I'm going to do 6L6. I'm going to do 6L6 GCs, I think. Trying to find some old ones to put in there. I could get some Sylvanias too, some old Sylvanias, which would be awesome. And then I also want to retube the preamp section. So the preamp of these is supposed to be using all of those Chinese 12AX7s, the ones with the square getter. And this guy came to me with 2 in the first 2 slots, and then the rest are spiky getters, like more like a JJ type tube. So I think if you just retubed it all with 12AX7Bs, it's actually got a sticker on the inside. If you shine a flashlight inside the amp, it actually has a sticker that says Chinese 12AX7B only right under the preamp. So I assume that the previous owner selected these tubes, right? He rolled some tubes around and selected these, but I'm gonna put in some different ones. So the video I want to do is basically like play it now, send it in for service, have all that service done, and then play it again and see what the sonic differences are. So that's what I would like to do. Okay, there's one more on here down the bottom. We'll scoot down the bottom and then we'll move over to the other side. Okay guys, so we've got one amp left over here. If you see me moving, the dog is down here. Say hi, Nico. Say hi, Nico. Say hello, hello. Okay. So this amp is a Friedman BE. This is a BE100 from 2015 or so. It's an older one. And it has been modded by Dave to Jake E. Lee 100 specs. So it's effectively a Jake E. Lee 100. And actually, it has an added bonus, which is on the back, because it was a BE100, it has the response knob. So the cool thing about this JEL 100 that's not true of the other JEL 100 is that you can control the negative feedback with this. So, and it's really powerful. If you put it all the way down low at like an old Marshall level, it sounds, you know, really Marshall-y. If you turn it up to like 5 or 5.5 where like a BE would sit, it sounds way more aggressive, way more modern. It really affects the sound of the amp a lot. So this is like a really, really, really cool amp. The way to think about this amp, I think, is just like imagine the best JCM 800 you've ever heard, right? Like just whatever that is to you, okay? That's what this amp is. It's literally an idealized JCM 800, you know, with Dave's tweaks. It's got like no ice pick spikiness. It's still got that like chugga chugga thing like Jake E. Lee, you know, like dan dan ticka ticka dan ticka ticka dan, you know, like that whole kind of thing. It sounds better the more you turn it up. It's got 3-way bright switches. It's got the 800, it's a plexi channel, then 800 channel, then 800 plus channel. It's like the Jake E. Lee channel. This thing just has like that sound. This thing is the sound of rock. It sounds like the 80s, you know, it sounds like the late 70s and into the 80s and into the early 90s. It's an iconic tone, and this amp just sounds ridiculously good. All right, that's the end of this first column. Let's hop over to the second side. We'll go from top to bottom again, and then I'll do the middle. Okay guys, so we're over on the left-hand side now. We've got another 5 amps over here. We'll start at the top and go down to the bottom. This is actually brand new. This is a brand new Mesa Boogie Mark II C Plus reissue HRG, the 100 watt one. It's incredible. I love it. I love everything about this amp. It's awesome. I love it in 100 watt mode. I love it in 60 watt mode. I love the extra headroom. I didn't think I would care that much for it, but just something about it. And the mids on this one are very different than the mids on the, so I've owned, just for the record, so I've owned my old DRGX from 1983. I've owned the reissue 2C Plus. I've owned the reissue 2C Plus Plus, and now I've owned the reissue HRG. I really think that the difference with the HRG is more oomph, more upper content cut, more like a JCM 800. It's very cutting. It can sound very cutting. And the mid-range on this one is different than the mid-range on the Simulclass amps. The Simulclass amps are a little more liquid. They're a little bit more smooth. This amp is a little bit more just like brute force, just like more power. And therefore the mids are a bit different. They're not as fluid. They're a little bit more present, is maybe the way I would put it. So I absolutely love this thing. I've been getting a ton of great tones out of this thing. I'm going to do a video on it at some point, but that's the story with this guy. Just a brand new one. I literally bought it 2 weeks ago. Okay, next amp. Now this is an amp that probably you're like, Mike, what the hell is that amp doing in there? You know, one of these things is not like the other. So this is an amp you probably would not associate with me. This is a 2-Rock custom reverb signature V2 with the Blueface plate. This is known as the John Mayer Continuum amp. That's what this is. So this is a Dumble style circuit, and this is the amp that John Mayer used on his hit album Continuum. This one's 50 watts, not 100 watts. I generally prefer lower wattages on 2-Rocks because you need to run them really loud to get them to sound good, to get them to like do the thing. So I generally prefer 50 watts. If you've never played a Dumble or Dumble type circuit, you're really doing yourself a disservice. This amp is not an amp. Like all the other amps in this room are like amplifiers. This is an instrument. It's an instrument. It's beautiful. I mean, when you plug a Strat and go into like a blues breaker pedal or something into the front of this thing and you've got it turned up, it's insane. The touch sensitivity, the singing quality of the leads, that mid-range thing that 2-Rocks do where like it's got a ton of mid content but then it rolls off. This thing is just the sound. You want John Mayer, you want Hendrix, you want Stevie Ray, you want, you know, and I know a lot of these guys use a lot of different kind of amps, but this is the thing for that. And I absolutely love this amplifier. Even though it is not like any of the other amps in here, this is a fantastic amp. I always tell people, you should find one amp for your collection that is atypical for you. Whether it's a 2-Rock or like, you know, if you're a hard rock alt metal guy like me, maybe it's a 2-Rock, maybe it's a Benson, maybe it's a, what's another good example? Maybe it's like a Trainwreck. Maybe it's a, you know, something different, right? Something that's not like all these other high gain beasts. And you should have one of those in your collection. And this does it for me. This is just a beautiful instrument. Can't recommend it enough. What else can I tell you? Okay, and then we'll do one more here and then we'll move to the bottom. So this amp looks like a regular old JCM 800, but it is not. This amp has been modded by Dave Friedman. So this is a 1981 JCM 800 2204, so it's a 50 watt amp. You note the vertical inputs, right? So this is still when they were using higher voltages and stuff. This amp has been modded by Dave Friedman with a naked mod, which is the Billy Howardell amp mod. I've owned, I think, 4 nakeds now. This is the best one. It's just the best one, which surprises me because it's only 50 watts. But you know, I like 50 watt amps, so maybe that's why I think this. I don't know. Dave did the mod on this, and apparently he said at the end that he thought this amp turned out particularly good. So if you trust Dave Friedman's ear, which I think we all do, you know, he'll tell you this is a particularly good sounding naked. There's just something about it. I think because it has the old Marshall power section. The other nakeds I had were Friedman nakeds, right? I had a black one. I had a BE100 that was modded to naked specs. But this one, I think, stands out because of that Marshall power section. I think that's really what makes it sound awesome. I'm going to do a video on this coming up because I want to take, I actually have these two guys here. I want to take these two hot mods and I want to put them in here and like see what happens. So I'm going to do like a standard naked, then I'm going to do like a, hot mod naked, and we'll play around with the switches a little bit, and then we'll do like a Mr. Scary naked and just see like, can I turbocharge this thing? Because honestly, this amp does not have a ton of gain. I mean, it's gainy, but it's gainy like a plexi. It doesn't really have like a ton of gain. But I think, you know, when you put those in it, it's going to turn it into a flamethrower. So look for a video on that coming up sometime soon. All right, let's jump down to the bottom two, and then we'll do the center. Okay, guys, we're down at the bottom, so we're just under the naked now. This is another Friedman. Can you tell that I like Friedman amps? This is another Friedman that I really, really love. This is a Steve Stevens V1. Nothing special about it in terms of like there's no mods or anything to it. It's just a regular old Steve Stevens V1. But I love this thing. I love this thing more than, you know, it's very sad because this is like one of the last Friedmans that I've tried, right? I mean, I've owned BE100, BE100 Deluxe, Small Box, Wildwood Small Box, Twin Sister, Dirty Shirley, I mean, Naked, Jakey Lee, right? I mean, I've owned like almost all of Dave's amps, but for whatever reason, this one never made it on my radar. I don't really know why, and it's a shame because this amp is awesome. This is like, I think, my favorite of Dave's kind of baseline amps. And the reason I like it, I think, is because a couple of things. So number one, the clean channel on this is incredible. It's got a Fender Blackface style clean, unlike the Plexi clean that's on a lot of Dave's other amps. And it sounds awesome. You would never believe that it's an EL34 Marshall style amp. I mean, the clean channel sounds just like an old Blackface Fender. So the clean channel is incredible. And then the gain channels, it's like a, so obviously it's based on the BE, right, with tweaks. I would describe it as thicker, fatter, brighter, and maybe like a more chunky than a BE100. It's like a chunkier kind of sound. It's like a little bit like, this amp is thick, you know, like it's like a thick sound. Unlike some of the other ones that I think can sound a little thin at times. Some of the other amps, you know, like the Small Box, for example, at times can sound thin. I think that's why Dave put that thump knob on the back of the new ones, right? This amp does not have that problem, but there is a trick to this amp. So if you are like, Mike, I've had that amp and I didn't like it, you may have screwed up. And let me tell you, it took a lot of screwing around with this thing to figure out how to get it to sound good. And the way to get the gain to sound incredible is to turn everything up. It's like an old Marshall. Turn all your EQ controls up, turn your gain up, and this thing will sound awesome. And I'll tell you something hilarious. I did that, right? And I turned all this up, got an awesome sound out of it, loved it. I was like, man, this thing is cool as fuck. And then I was like, I remember Zach Wish did this really awesome video a while back about the Steve Stevens. I wonder, like, what his settings are. Like, let me take a look. And I went on the video, and I swear to God, I'm not even joking with you, it's almost exactly the same. It's literally almost exactly the same. He's got everything up at like 7, 8. So it's, you know, with these settings, it's an absolutely awesome amp. And one of my favorite things about this amp too is, like most Friedmans, it's pretty sensitive to the output of your pickup. Maybe not guitar to guitar like the Grace, but it's sensitive to the output of your pickup. So if you've got like a thinner PAF, this amp will sound a lot brighter and a lot leaner in the mids. If you've got a Les Paul with a Duncan distortion in it, it's going to sound a lot, very thick, very like chunky and, you know, beefy. But I wouldn't describe this as a wide amp like the 5150 or the Uberschall, right, which is a very big, wide amp. This amp is more like a laser, right? Like I mean, it's a Friedman, so it's polished, right? It's very polished. So it's designed to give you like a mic'd produced sound in the room, and it does that with, you know, with spades. So awesome amplifier, really love this thing. All right, let's jump down to the VHT. Okay guys, so down at the bottom here, we have the VHT Deliverance 60. This is an OG Deliverance from VHT. But basically this is the first round, and this is back when they had a choke in them, and the 60 watt was voiced differently than the 120 watt. Right now, they're all voiced the same. I think from Deliverance 2 and onwards, the 120 and the 60 were voiced the same. But in the original Deliverances, they were voiced differently. The 120 had like a bigger, high headroom kind of sound, and the 60 had like a more pissed off, upper mid-range kind of thing going on. Frankly, like a little bit more like a Marshall. So that's this guy. So this guy is just like a vicious little beast. Well, a little, I mean, it's in a huge head shell, but like it's a vicious little beast. It's just like a really punchy amp, kind of like this one to some extent, like very punchy, but it's got this snarl, you know, this like upper mid-range, like raspiness that just really will rip your face off. It's like a vicious little amp. And I also noticed that you need to dial this one in very differently compared to the 120. The 120, I felt like I was pushing mids and I was always trying to pull back on bass and thump, and I was increasing treble like very high. On this amp, it's a bit different. I'm actually cutting mids, boosting bass, boosting depth because it's a 60 watt circuit, right? It's voiced a bit differently. So it's kind of cool. And this one is a master built one, which means that it has some mods from the factory in it. So this has the effects loop in the back with an on-off. It's currently off. And then it also has foot switchable less more. So it makes it really useful in a gigging context because it's almost sort of like a 2-channel amp. You've got less and more. In the newer Deliverances, Steve allows you to change the volume of each of those channels. So like you can say, oh, I want less to be louder than more, or I want more to be a solo boost also, so I want it to be louder than less. In this one, you can't do that. It's just like on, off, and they're volume matched. So it's not like it's a big jump in volume when you go from less to more. They've balanced it so that when you foot switch on it, it's equal. Very much like a Friedman, right? Like when you go from BE to HBE. Very similar here. It's like you go from less to more. It's like the same thing, just more. I personally prefer that. Having volume levels for every channel and stuff can be very annoying. I prefer an amp like this where it's like, hey, I've got a thing, I step on it, I get more thing. You know, and that's kind of how this is organized. Just a really, really, really cool amp. If you ever get a chance to buy a master built VHT or you get a chance to buy an old OG one with a choke, buy it. Just buy it. They're not even that expensive. I don't even remember what I paid for this. It wasn't that much. It was under $2,000. So it's not even an expensive amp anymore. And it just sounds incredible. It doesn't sound like anything else in here. The Deliverance, maybe the closest amp in here is like the Naked. Might be the closest because it has this very like sticky, almost tough to play feel, right? Very tight, very sticky, very, what's the word I want to use? There's like a word I'm looking for, like stiff, like very stodgy. I've been watching the Great British Baking Show, right? Very stodgy, right? It's like a very stodgy amp, but man, if you have the chops, this thing will just, your tone will burn. So it's an incredible amp. This is an awesome amp. All right, let's move to the center, the Jube here. That has the biggest story, and that's a good segue to the cabs, and then I'll show you guys a couple of the cabs that are in here. Okay, guys, the last amp in the room is in the center here, in between the two stacks. This is my baby. This is my little baby. This is my 1987 Marshall Silver Jubilee 2550. So this is the 50-watt version of the Jubilee. All the feature set and everything is exactly the same as the 100 watt. There's no differences, just headroom. This amp has an incredible story, which is why I wanted to talk about it last. So I bought this amp during COVID when I was living with my friends in Phoenix, and I saw it on Craigslist, and the guy was charging a very reasonable amount for the whole set here. It was the head and the cab. We'll get to the cab in just a second. But the guy was selling them both. And I messaged him a few times and he kind of tried to talk me out of it. He was like, you don't want this amp. This is for like a collector or something. Like if you're just looking for the sound, like just go buy Black Jubilee, which are the ones from like 1988, 1989 that don't have the silver. Or he was like, go buy a Slash 2555 from the 90s, right? It's the same circuit. And so it took me a while to get him to actually take me seriously. I was like, no, like I want this amp. It's in insane condition. This is exactly what I'm looking for. Like I want it. So it took me a while to get in touch with him. And then once I got in touch with him and I met up with him, turns out he is the ex-tech for Megadeth, Pino Palladino, Paul Simon, Guns N' Roses. He does a bunch of tech work, guitar tech work, recording tech work, everything. I mean, it was absolutely insane the people this guy knows. Absolutely wild. Like, he partied with Axl Rose in Phoenix at his mansion just north of Phoenix. I mean, like, absolutely freaking wild. So turns out he was a really cool guy. Sold me the amp finally, and the cool part is I've been keeping in touch with him ever since. Like, I send him photos like, hey, here's the amp, it's doing really well, etc. You're probably like, okay, the guy's famous, but what's the deal? The deal is this guy, prior to all this tech work, he ran an amp rental business in LA during the 80s. And this was like kind of common because at that time, right, like people would rent amps. They would rent them for a studio session. They'd rent them for a tour. They'd be coming to LA or SoCal to do shows and they would rent them. Kind of like Suhr, if you know the Suhr thing with Slash, right, where they rented the amp. Very similar concept. And at one point, he owned over 100 Marshalls. So he became very good friends with the Marshall family, with Jim, with his son, got to know them. And this guy's a very personable guy. He's Canadian, very personable guy. And so the story about this amp is the guy owned all these Marshalls, over 100 Marshalls, renting them out all over the place, etc. In 1987, Jim Marshall called him, because remember, they were friends. So Jim, business friends, right? So he called him and said like, hey, you've been like a great customer of ours. You bought all these Marshalls. Tell you what, we have a new amp coming out. Come to the NAMM show. At the time it was in Chicago. Come to the NAMM show in Chicago, 1987. I'm going to show you this new amp. So Mike goes, and that's the name of the guy, Mike. So Mike comes across the border from Canada. He was living in Toronto at the time. Comes across the border to NAMM in Chicago, meets Jim Marshall there, and Jim says, check out this new amp. I want you to play a bunch. They were 50 watts, 100 watts, all of these different Jubilees. Brand new, right, at the time in 1987. And so Jim Marshall and Mike played all these amps, so, they jammed on them, etc. And they agreed that out of all of them at the NAMM show, this was the best sounding one. So Jim Marshall signed the amp on the back for Mike. And Mike took it back through customs to Canada and he hid it under a bunch of blankets. And the reason he had to do that is the rocker switches. These rocker switches were illegal in Canada at the time. If you've ever seen an 80s Canada model of a Marshall, they have the little metal switches like on a lot of the other amps here. They didn't have the rockers because the rockers were illegal due to various like voltage situations, I don't know, politics, right? So Mike snuck the amp back in. Now the cabinet down here, Mike couldn't bring in because obviously it was huge. So this was shipped to him later, and we'll talk about the cab in just a second. But that's the story of this Marshall, and it's just, honestly, of all the amps in this room, which many wonderful amps, this is my number one. This is my baby. I'm never selling this amp. I've owned it for coming on 6 years now, which I know is not that long, but for a person like me where all these things are shifting all the time, it's, a long time. I love the clean channel. I love the lead channel. I love the rhythm clip. Fun fact on this amp, the rhythm clip still works on the lead channel. I don't know if it's a design oversight or what, but if you pull out the rhythm clip on the lead mode, it does change the sound. Gives it a little bit more gain, compresses it a little bit more. Very cool. And this thing is just awesome. I mean, it's rock and roll. It's history. I mean, you want Slash, you want Frusciante, you want Rich Robinson. I mean, these are all guys I idolize, and I wanted a Jubilee forever, and this was like the perfect opportunity. So this has just an incredible sound, amazing amplifier. So that's the last one. That's the Jubilee. That's my baby. Now let's talk cabs. I'm going to talk to you about this cab down here first, and then I'll talk to you about these cabs that are over on the other side of the room, and we'll cover the Mesa cab over here. Okay, so the first cab I want to talk to you about, and all these cabs don't have stories. It's really just this one and the Mesa. The Mesa has a small story, but this one is the only one with a story. The others are just cabs, so I'll show them to you. But this one, obviously, it matches the Jubilee. This is a very unusual cabinet. So this cabinet has the original Marshall G12 vintage speakers from 1987, which would later become known as the Vintage 30. But these original ones don't sound very much like a Vintage 30. They're not nearly as bright. They don't have that mid-range spike. They're much more like an old Pulsonic greenback type of sound. And Mike actually told me that when I bought the cab from him. He's like, just warning, like this cab sounds a little bit unusual. It's very different from other cabs you might have played. So not only does it have those speakers, but those speakers are 8 ohm speakers. So most Marshall cabs are 16 ohm speakers. So these are 8 ohm speakers. What does that mean? It means a 16 ohm speaker is a little bit more like this, a little bit more like this, more lows and highs, and a more scooped mid-range. An 8 ohm speaker is more like this. It's got a rolled off bottom and a rolled off top and a lot of mids. Okay, so this is a very mid-heavy cabinet. And then on top of that, not only are they 8 ohm speakers, but it's wired at 8 ohms, which means more mid-range, right? A lot of times when you plug into a 16 ohm and into a 16 ohm cabinet, 16 ohm head into a 16 ohm cabinet, you're gonna get more of that like this type of sound, right? Like a little bit more like this. But these 8 ohm speakers at 8 ohms is more like a Mesa. Frankly, it's much more like a Mesa Boogie, right? Mesa cabs are 8 ohm speakers wired at 8 ohms usually, right? Because Mesa amps tend to be a little scooped, so that cabinet brings up the mids and rolls off the highs so they're not fizzy. So this cab is kind of like a weird cab. It's sort of like a cross between a Marshall cab and a Mesa cab. It's a Marshall cab in construction, it's a Marshall cab in type of speaker, but then it's like, it has 8 ohm speakers like a Mesa, wired at 8 ohms like a Mesa. So it's kind of a very unusual cabinet, but it's just my favorite cabinet of all time. Like, I guess I've just gotten used to it, right? When I play a lot of cabs now, they sound so bright. I told you before about the VH4, when I run the VH4 in stereo and I have 1 power amp on this and 1 power amp on the Mesa cab. The Mesa cab is so bright compared to this cabinet. So when I switch from this cab to other cabs, I usually have to like turn the treble down on my amps and stuff because, and the mids, because this cabinet is so unusual. So that's the story with this guy. This was shipped to Mike in Canada later. He couldn't bring it across the border, so it was shipped to him from Marshall, UK later, and it's in incredible condition. It's been on a bunch of recordings. It's just an awesome cab. So that's this guy. I'll show you the Mesa one, which is right over here, and then we'll cover these extra ones that are over here on the side. Okay, hey guys, so we're moving from the Marshall cabinet over to this Mesa cab that's on the side. This is like my number 2 cab. Quick story about this cab. This is a late 90s Mesa Boogie 4x12, like kind of like a golden era Mesa 4x12. It's in incredible condition because it sat in a church for like 20 years. When I messaged the guy to buy it, I showed up. Him and his wife came out. They said, oh, we're pastors. We have this church. This was in the closet, and it came with a head. It had a Mesa Nomad head. So I bought the whole thing and then sold the Nomad to offset the cost, right? And they said that like some kid's dad like was rich. His dad was rich, and the kid wanted to play in the church group or whatever, you know, a religious worship group or whatever. And apparently the dad bought him this Nomad and this 4x12 back in the late 90s. The kid used it for a few years and then went off to college and stuff, and it sat in a closet, and they apparently tried to get in contact with this person and their dad or whatever, and they never answered. So, and it's been 20 years. So basically I got this cabinet essentially brand new like golden era Mesa cab. There's nothing fancy about it in terms of it's just a regular old Mesa oversized slant cab. It's not straight or traditional or anything like that. It's just kind of like the mainstream cabinet. It sounds really awesome. It's 8 ohms, 8 ohm speakers, far brighter than the Marshall cabinet. Probably not something you expect from a Mesa cab, but this cab is far brighter than this one. But this one has much bigger low end than this one. This one's really a very mid-heavy cabinet, which is why it's so great for recording and live mixes and such. This thing has a much bigger, wider sound, both brighter and more bass, right? So it's a little bit more of a scooped sounding cabinet. Even though Mesa cabs are noted for sounding a little bit more mid-heavy, this cab is so mid-heavy that this one sounds scooped by comparison. So yeah, so I love this thing. It's great. Let me take you over here. There's a couple more cabs real quick, and then we'll close it out. Okay guys, so I'm over on the other side of the room now just to show you a couple of the other cabs that I keep in here. I may take some of these back to storage because I actually don't use them as frequently as I thought I would. But what I've got here basically is this is a Fryette cab, the cover's on it, but this is a Fryette cab with the Fane speakers. It's an oversized 2x12. It's built like a brick shithouse. It sounds really good with the VHT. It's probably not the most versatile cab in here, but it can sound good with the right amps. Down below it, we've got a Bogner oversized 2x12. This actually came with the V30 H75 combo, but I really didn't care for that combo at all. I don't know, I just don't like it. So I replaced the speakers with two 16-ohm greenbacks from the early 90s. I think they're 1992. And Dave Friedman told me that these were like some of the best speakers out there that you can buy that like nobody knows about. So I found two of them on Reverb, and I bought them and I put them in that cab. It sounds really, really awesome. It's the only cab I have that won't handle a 100-watt head, which is a little bit of a bummer, but that's why you have like a power station or something. So I could plug a 100-watt amp into this and then plug this into that and it won't blow it out, right? So there's still ways to do it. Up top here, I've got my Carstens amplification cabinet. This is the matching cabinet for the Grace. It has a unusual speaker combination and unusual construction, but this cab sounds awesome with the Grace. I actually did a video where I compare the Grace through like 5 different speaker cabinets. You can check it out on my channel, and I've got this one in there also. And then down at the bottom here, I have the Suhr oversized 2x12. With the H75 creamback speakers. You might recognize this cab because I bought this cab because of Zach Wish. I'm a big fan of his channel. I love his videos and what he does, and I noticed that he has this cab that he uses for the majority of his videos, at least for some of the older ones. And I just loved the way it sounded. I loved the way it recorded, and I found one locally in Phoenix for like $450 or $500 or something. So I bought it, and it sounds awesome. The thing about this cab is great for a lot of amps. You can run a lot of amps through it, but the secret trick for this cab is to run it with Fender style amps. If you run H75 creambacks with a Bassman or a Twin Reverb or even a Fender derivative amp like a Boogie or a 2-Rock even, because they're Fender based, right? Sound awesome through this cab and through H75 speakers in general. And I think that that's because the scoop of those amps, this cab, the H75s, have a big up hump. So the EQ kind of narrows itself out. It works itself out, So basically like the weaknesses of those amps match up with the strengths of this cabinet and vice versa. So this is a really, really cool cabinet. And if you've never played one, you should check them out because you can pick them up pretty cheap. So that's the cab side of the house. I do have some guitars over here. I'll talk about the guitars later. We can do another video for that. But these are all my main cabs. I don't really use these very much. I would say 80% of what I'm doing goes through the Marshall cab, 20% goes through the Mesa cab, and then this stuff is just kind of miscellaneous as I need it. Okay, that's about it. Let's do a little conclusion and we'll shut it down. Thanks, guys. Hey guys, thanks for coming and sticking around for this entire video. It was long, but I wanted to give a little explanation about all the amps for the people that wanted to hear them. I'm really interested in your guys' thoughts. What do you think about these amps? Have you owned them? Have you played them? Does your view align or not align with mine? I'd also love to know like what other video topics you guys might like to see now that you know everything is everything in the room, right? You might want to say, hey, could I see a comparison between these two? Yeah, totally, right? Or hey, could you change the preamp tubes in this from 12AX7As to Bs? Like, yeah, totally. So, give me ideas. I'm happy to do them. And I do have a bunch of other videos already in production. So to those of you who are worried you might not see my shining face again, rest assured, I have some other stuff coming. Thanks, guys. This is Mike from Eldorado Guitars. Hope you have a good rest of your day.